The other day, I was on my way to Sunday morning church services, and as I rode along in the car and watched the scenery go by, I thought to myself that I was tired of prepping. I would not call myself a prepper. Maybe you have heard of that term before. As I understand it, it is a name for someone who prepares for some sort of social or economic breakdown of society, ranging from those who want to get back to basics to those who may be preparing for an apocalypse of sorts. I would like to get back to learning some basics, and in some ways I have been. This month I canned 3 pints of tomato sauce, and I think that I hate canning. This is one of 3 pints of the tomato sauce that I canned, and you can see it's not, that's not that much. And after all of the work it took to get to that point, I feel like that was like liquid gold rather than tomato sauce. I realized it took me at least 8 hours, and that is a conservative guess, to produce 3 pints of tomato sauce. And that is not counting the time of harvesting the tomatoes and all that it took to grow the tomato plants for months. I find canning to be stressful as well, making sure everything is precise and sterile, because what about botulism? But I consoled myself by thinking that even though my production of 3 jars was small compared to the effort of it all, at least I learned how to do it, and I know what is in the sauce. By the way, I'm amazed at how many fresh tomatoes it takes to make tomato sauce. Anyway, despite the various pains of it all, and despite not calling myself a prepper, I have been making some efforts to prepare. As I rode along in the car to go to Sunday morning church services that morning, as I mentioned earlier, I thought to myself that I was tired of prepping. I was tired of preparing. I was tired of trying to think ahead of what I might need and then taking actions to prepare for that need. And minutes later, that same morning, I found myself sitting in the church building and halfway listening to the sermon. My mind was wandering. I wasn't paying much attention to the sermon. Then I felt the Lord was showing me a comparison between the effort put into preparing in physical ways to the effort put into living the Christian life. As a result, I understood the preparing in physical ways better. This comparison helped alleviate some of my tiredness in preparing. The comparison being the results of the effort we put into both physical and spiritual things are not always seen right away. Seeing the results is sometimes delayed, sometimes something we will see and enjoy later. The efforts put into either thing can be tiring, can be a test of endurance and patience, because we don't always see the end result right away. And somehow this comparison comforted me. It encouraged me. Basically, I could see that the preparing in physical ways was not in vain. I already knew putting effort into living the Christian life and following the Lord was not in vain. So this comparison helped me to understand preparing in physical ways better. Perhaps some of the tiredness of preparing comes from the fact that the things I'm doing to prepare, acquiring various items, for instance, I am honestly not enjoying at this moment. I am really not using the items right now. They are acquired for use at some future time. When I invest mentally, physically, and monetarily in something, for me, it is typically enjoyed or at least used to some extent fairly soon. That is what I am used to. For example, if I buy a food item at a grocery store, I will probably be using it, consuming it, in a few days or so, if not that very day. And here I am putting mental, physical, and monetary investments into things I am not even using right now, so it felt strange. At times I did wonder if it was the right thing to do. I had doubts. I wondered if it was all going to be done in vain. I don't know when I will use what I have prepared for. It has seemed one-sided, putting effort out and into something and having no gratification from it at all as a result. At least, not yet. One day recently, I was thinking of buying some candles. That seemed basic enough to have some candles on hand. I knew that I had purchased some a couple years ago or so for this same reason of preparing. I knew I had stored them somewhere. I just needed to find them wherever they were. I dug around and found them fairly easily, which I was happy about. And there they were, an assortment of beeswax candles and candle holders. I didn't need to use them yet, but for the first time in all the preparing I've been doing, I experienced a gratifying moment. I was glad that I had purchased those candles years before. I had already prepared in that way, so I didn't need to purchase candles now. That small gratifying moment of being glad that I had prepared in this way years before made me see that the gratification of preparing is only delayed. It is not as if it will never come. For some reason, I understood this better when it was compared to Christian living. That some of our rewards and some of the results of obeying God will be seen and enjoyed later. Some of the results of following after the Lord is enjoyed now, too, thank God. Even so, when tests of endurance and patience, as well as labor or fierce battle, is involved in following the Lord, at times I have wondered, what is it coming to? What is the end result of this? It is not always easy, is what I guess I'm getting at, and I can wonder what kind of good is this going to result in. My answer is to keep going, because it is not in vain, and I know it. It is only at very trying times when my flesh whines and asks, what is it all for? Another thing that has helped me with the preparing I've been doing is that instead of labeling myself as a prepper, which I don't want to do, neither do I feel like I am at that level, is to look at it this way. Can I at least be as wise as an ant? An ant, you know, like the bug. Can I at least be as wise as an ant? That seemed like a sensible way to view it. Walk in the manner of the ant, O slacker. Observe its ways and become wise. Without a commander, without an overseer or ruler, it prepares its provisions in summer. It gathers its food at harvest. 4 things on earth are small, yet they are exceedingly wise. The ants are creatures of little strength, yet they store up their food in the summer. And then it goes on to name the other three things that are small and exceedingly wise, that I will not go into at this moment. I just wanted to focus on the ant. And here I will pivot to a different point, which is what will matter more than physical preparations is that you are spiritually prepared. Have you noticed the Lord working in you recently? Or perhaps your personal relationship with Him has grown. These preparations, the heavy work God has been doing in you, will pay off greatly when they are called upon. It will mean more than all the stockpiling in the world. One's solid relationship with God is going to be, and is, the most valuable thing. A major God with a little g, a major God with a little g, a major support will be taken away, and really it will affect people's emotions more than their physical situations. Their physical situations will be affected too, but the effect will be more psychological. A paradigm shift. Those who have a relationship with God will have security because their security is in Him and not in other things. Everyone will feel the change, particularly those who love their things and money and equate that to security and success. But be unafraid. God is with you always. Your work and your efforts are not in vain. Your preparations are not in vain. Man can prepare for survival on this earth, but they should also prepare spiritually, and this is where there are more who are unprepared. Are you prepared for eternity? Is the question. People store up supplies for earthly living. They should store up their riches in heaven. Prepare for an eternal life. Each will be rewarded according to their deeds. There will be no error. This is most real as canned goods sitting in a cupboard. God's people should prepare now for their eternity. They would not want to meet the Lord as a stranger. They would not want to meet Him having done nothing with the talents they were given. The majority always wonder why the minority take things seriously and prepare for anything. Noah, the guy that built the ark, looked very foolish to the majority at that time. And why do the ants work so hard? Why do Christians take their life seriously? These types of efforts are always doubted until it shows that it was not in vain. Not before then, only until the day comes when it shows it was not in vain. So until then, it can seem foolish. The wise man looks ahead. The fool attempts to fool himself and won't face facts. A prudent man foresees the difficulties ahead and prepares for them. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. And another verse from Proverbs that's very similar to the one I just read. A sensible man watches for problems ahead and prepares to meet them. The simpleton never looks and suffers the consequences. Also, know that some have been instructed to prepare in earthly ways and in spiritual ways, but have not acted on it. The unwise virgins knew that they had no oil. This was not unknown to them. Your preparations are not in vain, so you need not feel uncomfortable about it or doubtful about it. You will be glad you had oil in your lamp. You will be glad for your preparations. Like the ant who wisely prepares, those who have not prepared will wish they had, and they will remember those who advised them to prepare. They will know that their predicament is because of their own choices. It will be like this on Judgment Day, too. The time for preparing will end. Like for the ant, summer only lasts so long.